there's another twist to this rule. All the time we've mentioned all these words, the S that we've been talking about has been a single S, just one S. What if the S's are two? What is the rule, or what does the rule say about them? When you have two S's instead of one S, then here we do not talk about conditions. We just go straight ahead and talk about the rule. When the S's are two, for instance, in the word boss, B-O-S-S, when the S's are two like that, we do not place any emphasis on conditions. So conditions do not matter here. When you have two S's, whether they begin the word, whether they end the word, or whether they are in between two vowels, or in between a vowel and a consonant, nothing matters. Wherever you see two S's, you give them the sound of one S. So it is rather when the S's are two that we have the S sound. But when it is one, apart from the exceptions, all other words take the Z sound. I hope you are following this lesson with your heart, like the way I have passion for it. So when the S's are two, we do not have any conditions to satisfy, whether they are the first of the word or the last of the word, or in between two different letters, a vowel and a vowel, or a vowel and a consonant. We do not care. They are still called S. We give them the sound of one S. Okay, so when the S's are two, there are a lot of words we could also look at that follow that rule. So the rule says that when you have two S's, that is SS, in a word, whether they start, they end, they are in between, that doesn't matter. This is what the rule says. It says we should give them the sound of just one S, the original S sound. Note that SS does not produce any Z sound. Put that in your head. SS does not produce any Z sound in any word except there are exceptions. Okay? So when you have SS, they take the sound of that original S. So there is no Z in this business. So in a word like Montessori, which you can see on your screen, is pronounced as Montessori. Because the S's are two, we give it the original S sound. We would give it the original Z sound if only the S was one and it was between two vowels. Since the S's are two, we don't care whether it is between two vowels or a vowel and a consonant or whatever. We give it the original S sound. But a lot of people say Montessori and they think Montessori is rather the correct thing to say. That is so sad. Montessori is wrong. The correct thing to say is Montessori. And then we have ambassador. A lot of people call that word ambassador because the S's are two. And when the S's are two, you give it the sound of an original S. So we have ambassador. Ghana's ambassador to Canada. We do not have ambassador. Okay? Note that this is the rule and you cannot do without the rule. You can't be right when you do not obey the rule. Then we have lesson. Why don't you call that word lesson? Do you have a lesson today? Are you watching my lesson? That's wrong, and you know that. You are watching my lesson. In fact, it is given the S sound because the S's in the spelling are two. Lesson. You are watching my lesson. And then we have cassava, C-A-S-S-A-V-A. It's called cassava because the S's are two. If we take one S out, then we have one S between A and A. It will be called cassava. But the S's are two. So according to the rule, it is cassava, not cassava. Okay, then we have assist, an assistant or assistance. These are all S sounds because the S's are two. Possible. Have you ever heard anything possible? No, you haven't heard possible before because the S's are two. And that is according to the rule. Then we have haste and hasten. Then we have embassy. Note that it is very wrong to say embassy, British embassy. Okay, British High Commission, that's what we usually say in Ghana. Then American embassy, and people say I'm going to the Togo embassy, I'm going to the Canada embassy. This is very wrong. The correct pronunciation is embassy. Embassy, because the S's are two, and when the S's are two, there is no Z sound. Okay, except in a word that is an exception itself. There is no Z sound. Z has not got any business to do with SS. Okay, all right, and we have assume. This is one word that has been very violated, abused in English. A lot of people say assume and they say assumption. It is wrong no matter who says it. Even if it is a president saying it, if it is your English lecturer saying assume, it is still wrong. So you have to assume that the lecturer saying assume has not kept the rule. So the word is assume, not assume. It is assume because the S's are two. And we say assumption, not assumption. Take note of that too. Assumption, it is not assumption because the S's are two. And that word is not an exception. All the words I'm mentioning to you now are not exceptions. They are words that obey the rule. Then we have boss, B-O-S-S. You know that for boss, the S's are the last in the word. It doesn't matter. The conditions don't matter. It is still S, boss. Then we have assess. You are done with your examination. Now your school must assess you to see how well you performed. So we have assess and then assessment. Okay, so class assessment. We have that, and then we have assassinate. The assassinate has got four S's, alright? So each of the two S's appearing together, one by the side of the other, would sound as one S. So we don't say assassinate or assassinate or assassinate. It's never that way. Okay, so we have assassinate or an assassin. Then we have assiduous. Note that the word doesn't have an I after the D. It's not assiduous. It's assiduous, okay? To work assiduously means to work hard. And that word is not assiduous. I have actually heard somebody say assiduous before. That is wrong. Now, what I have worried about over the years is that many speakers have misconstrued the rule and turned the rule upside down. Clearly, now you understand that when the S is one and it is between two vowels in a word, it sounds as a Z. And simply, when the S's are two, no matter the condition, they sound as one S. Now, people actually think when the S's are two, they have a Z sound. And when the S is one, it has an S sound. That is the twist in it. And you have to get it because you are watching this video today. When the S is one and between two vowels, you give it a Z sound unless the word is an exception. And when the S's are two, you give it an S sound. And because of this mistake people make by turning the rule upside down, they mention Montessori as Montessori, which is very wrong. I really feel bad when I hear somebody pronounce Montessori as Montessori. The S should be S, Montessori, instead of Montessori. And people say embassy instead of embassy. People say ambassador instead of ambassador. People say assumption instead of assumption. People say assume instead of assume. They must all have the original sound of an S, because the rule says that when you have SS, they should sound as S. Okay, so stop saying assume and start saying assume. Now, one thing I want you to know, the word assume has been adopted by an American dictionary. It was adopted because in Nigeria, a lot of people say they assume. They hardly say assume. So for the purpose of dialectism, the dictionary has adopted it just to make the language more flexible. But note that even though it has been adopted, it is treated as a substandard usage. So you cannot have it in a formal language, in a formal speech, in a formal writing. You should still go by the dictates of the rule. So you say assume instead of assume. You cannot go with a substandard usage. Don't say visa, say visa, okay? And don't say embassy, say embassy. People have twisted them. Instead of visa, they say visa. And instead of embassy, they say embassy. Now that you know the rule, be a disciple. Go out there, teach a lot of people, correct people when they make the mistakes. Join me, let us educate the world. There are a lot of people who are natives of English-speaking countries and still make these mistakes. I hear them when I watch movies. I see them in people's articles. I hear them when I watch people speak on YouTube, on television, and a whole lot of other places. Now that you know when to say S and when to say Z, now that you know that when you have SS in a word, it takes the sound of an original S, let's learn that there are a few exceptions to this rule. And one of the exceptions is the word POSSESS. Okay, that word is not mentioned as possess. It is rather mentioned as possess. This is the only time you can have the SS assuming the Z sound. And it is so because the word has been treated as an exception. It is exempted from the words that follow the rule. So we have possess and then we have possessive. Okay, possess and possessive. This is the only exception that I could brainstorm for you. There are others, but when you come across them, don't forget to share them with me. I believe that this video has been very useful to you. Share the video, like the video, hit on the subscribe button if you haven't already, and join me again in the next video. The next video is going to be a continuation of this lesson, and I'll see you again in the next video. Have a wonderful time. Bye bye.